Johnny Depp sees an elderly man using sticks as crutches. What he does next will change everything. The bustling streets of Los Angeles were alive with the usual mix of tourists, street performers, and busy professionals rushing to their next destination. Among them walked Johnny Depp, dressed in his signature rugged style, a brown leather jacket, tinted glasses, and a fedora hat that slightly shielded his famous face. He had managed to slip away from the spotlight for a while, taking a quiet stroll after grabbing a coffee from his favorite small cafe. But then something unusual caught his eye. A frail, elderly man, probably in his late 70s, was hobbling down the sidewalk, struggling to stay upright. Instead of a proper walking aid, he was using two broken sticks as makeshift crutches. His clothes were worn out, his shoes barely held together, and his face carried the weight of exhaustion and hardship. People passed by, barely giving him a second glance. Some even stepped aside to avoid him, pretending not to notice his struggle. Johnny stopped in his tracks. He wasn't the kind of person to look away when someone was in need. For a moment, he simply observed the old man, trying to understand his situation. Then, without hesitation, Johnny approached him. "Sir, are you all right?" Johnny asked gently. The elderly man lifted his head, his tired eyes filled with both surprise and confusion. He wasn't expecting anyone, let alone a stranger, to stop for him. He took a moment before replying, his voice hoarse and weak. I'm all right, son. Just trying to get home." Johnny noticed how much the man struggled with every step. He glanced at the sticks, shaking his head slightly. "These aren't crutches. You could fall and hurt yourself badly," Johnny pointed out. The elderly man sighed. "They're all I have. I lost my real crutches weeks ago, and I can't afford new ones." Johnny's expression hardened, not in anger, but in determination. This wasn't something he could just walk away from. "Let me help you," he said. The man hesitated. "I don't want to be a burden. People got places to be." Johnny smiled kindly. "Well, today my place to be is right here with you." The old man's lips trembled slightly. It had been a long time since anyone had treated him with kindness. Without waiting for permission, Johnny carefully took the man's arm, supporting him as they slowly walked toward a nearby bench. People were now starting to notice. The Johnny Depp helping an elderly man off the street. It wasn't something you saw every day. Once they sat down, Johnny took off his jacket and gently draped it over the old man's thin shoulders. "What's your name, sir?" Johnny asked. "Henry," the old man replied, gripping the jacket tightly, as if it were the warmest thing he'd felt in years. Johnny smiled. "Nice to meet you, Henry. Let's get you some real crutches, all right?" Before Henry could protest, Johnny pulled out his phone and made a call. Within minutes, a black SUV pulled up, and Johnny helped Henry inside. "Where are we going?" Henry asked, still in disbelief. "First, we're getting you a hot meal. Then we'll take care of everything else." Henry sat back, his eyes glistening with grateful tears. Johnny took Henry to a nearby diner, where he ordered a warm meal, the first proper one Henry had eaten in weeks. As they sat across from each other, Henry slowly opened up about his life. He had once been a construction worker, but after a severe accident, he lost his ability to work. Medical bills had drained his savings, and eventually he had lost his home. With no family to turn to, he had been living on the streets, barely surviving. Johnny listened intently, his heart heavy with emotion. He had seen hardships in his own life, but hearing Henry's struggles firsthand made him realize how easily people could be forgotten by society. By the time they finished eating, Johnny had already made a decision. He wasn't just going to buy crutches, he was going to change this man's life. They drove to a medical supply store where Johnny bought the best pair of crutches they had. He even arranged for Henry to receive proper medical care and offered to cover his expenses. But he didn't stop there. Johnny made a few more calls, and by the end of the day, Henry had a safe place to stay. A small but comfortable apartment, paid for by Johnny himself. When Henry realized what had happened, he was overcome with emotion. "Johnny, I don't know what to say," he whispered, his voice breaking. Johnny placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Just promise me one thing, Henry. When you see someone else in need, help them if you can." Tears streamed down Henry's face as he nodded. The next day, news spread about Johnny Depp's act of kindness. Someone had filmed the moment when he helped Henry off the street, and the video had gone viral. Fans, reporters, and even celebrities were in awe of his generosity. But Johnny, he didn't care for the attention. When asked about it in an interview, he simply said, "I didn't do anything special. I just saw a man who needed help and I helped. Isn't that what we're all supposed to do?" And with that, Johnny Depp reminded the world that true kindness doesn't come from fame or wealth, it comes from the heart. And for Henry, that one moment changed everything.